Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Click R3 number 12. Technically live episode number 1. This is the first
13.
time we've gone live. 13?
Mm-hmm.
I'm already off. Look at that. We already met. See? This is what happened when we go live. This is how
John
you know
can't
it's live.
count. John can't count.
This is how you know it's live.
Otherwise,
if I was
cut it here.
I was correct. You're surprised we're on time. That's what you're surprised about.
I think the chat probably is. Spawncast is never on time. At least 5-minute delay. Well, it used to be.
Yeah. Well, people are going to ask in the chat if this is actually live. It is live. It is.
It is indeed
this is the first. Yep. First time we've been live. First time. We actually had a situation because Game and Talk was going to be live tonight, but actually some of the people there, which I think they've made it public now because I think it's over on their Twitter. A couple of the people on that panel are going to be that podcast are going to be at the Game Awards. They are going. They are going to be there. So
good for them.
That's what they'll be doing. It'll be Celia will be there, and Josie will actually be there.
Oh, Josie's going too.
Yep, two of them are going. So they'll be coming back with all kinds of stories for the next Game and Talk episode. But that's why that one was kind of, I don't want to say last minute, but it was recent that they found out they were going. So it was kind of like, oh, well, we got to go. Like we got to travel now. So that's why. So Ryan and I took over. We're the Spawncast Network live show tonight. Come on in. See, look, you showed up on time. We did. We are here. And this is live. We got you. See, look. We'll prove it to you. I already messed up the title. How much more proof you need? But it is it's good to be here because there's a lot of excitement in the air right now. The Game Awards is tomorrow. So we unfortunately can't tell the future, so we can't cover that right now. But we are going to do one more Click R3 before the end of the year. All right. So otherwise it would have fallen on because 2 weeks from now is Christmas. So we decided, you know what?
You don't want to talk on Christmas?
Do a Christmas Day stream. I bet you that's one of the things where so many people don't do it. You would probably get a lot of people coming by to hang out.
Do you really have to celebrate with your family, John? Or with me?
That's a good point. That's a good point. So what we're going to do is next week we'll reconvene, me, Ryan, Nano, and we'll talk about the Game Award announcements, anything else we want to wrap up for the year before we finish up for 2024. So there will be almost an impromptu or just a final holiday episode of Click R3 next week, shooting for Tuesday, as usual. Tuesday, we'll make it live. People can come by. How about that? We'll do a fun thing. All right, the 17th.
Well, so we record on Tuesdays typically, but it goes live either Wednesday or Thursday.
Maybe we'll make that one live too. Well, yeah, that's true. Maybe we'll make that one live too. I don't know how people feel about the 9 o'clock live stream time slot. We usually do it later in now. Although I guess on the West Coast it's 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's true. It's also Central Time.
Bad. And if it's not, it'll be up for you guys. So it'll just be there. There's Medallion. Medallion got called a bot on Twitter. That's Twitter for you. But we have a lot actually happening that we're going to go over tonight because Ryan shows up with all kinds of interesting topics and things. And wouldn't you know it, even today, some stuff came out. What we got? What do we got, Ryan? What's the move tonight?
A lot of stuff, a lot of topics to go over. The 30th anniversary stuff. We haven't really gotten the chance to talk about what Sony did. There's a new firmware, some PSVR 2 stuff. The Bend kind of leak thing came out, right? So we have a lot to go over. A lot to talk about tonight. More than I thought. Normally around this time, things do tend to quiet down a little bit, which it'll get really quiet, like pretty much after the TGAs. It's, because everybody in the business is going to be going on holiday, taking a break and go on leave. So we are like just about wrapping up like pretty heavy video game news. So,
Yep. There'll be a lot of like tiny things really out there, but it'll still be interesting to follow along, see what people have for us. But of course you can check us out over on the Spawncast Networks down below in the description. We do all kinds of mailbag stuff over there, community focused things. So check it out. It is down below. But Ryan, what do you want to start with tonight? What are you thinking?
Well, we got the PS Plus lineup to cover here. So got PS Plus Essential December lineup already live on PSN. It Takes Two, PS4, PS5, Aliens Dark Descent, PS4, PS5, and Temtem, which is only on PlayStation 5. It Takes Two, Game of the Year, back in 2020. That was 2022. if I remember correctly. Or was that 21?
It was 2 years ago, wasn't it? Was it 2
Yeah,
years ago? No.
I said 2022 on my show, but I'm like, wait, did it actually come out this year or that year? I can't remember, but a great game, obviously. And I look forward to seeing Joseph Fares tomorrow, probably being crazy again.
Split Fiction. Did you see the tour of the studio?
Yes.
They
Ridiculous.
have fun there, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to be a goofy boss walking around. So that's a great title though to have on the December lineup, and Temtem's like that like Pokemon style game.
It is. You have cards. You throw cards at them. I played it a little bit. The thing about that though is it definitely does like multiplayer better than Pokemon. Like people actually are in the same space at more than 20 frames a second.
This is true. We also have the PS Plus Extra December lineup. This is going live on the 17th. So we just got this today. A lot of decent stuff, actually. Sonic Frontiers, Forspoken. That was a pretty high profile game that Sony initially partnered up with Square when the PS5 cycle started. We have Rabbids Party of Legends, WRC Generations, Fist Forged and Shadow Torch, Jurassic World Evolution 2. I'm a big fan of this. Coffee Talk Episode 1, Coffee Talk Episode 2. Hibiscus
I brought this up in
Butterfly.
Newswave for tomorrow, and I was like, somebody told me that Coffee Talk is a good game.
Of course, it's a good game. It's straight vibes. It's just the best sort of visual novel experience ever. You craft some brews and coffees and have these relationships develop, and it's just one of those cozy games. Your boy's all about it. Then we also have Fogs and Biped. That's for PS Plus Extra.
I saw Fogs and I thought of Cat Dog right away when I saw that.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. That looks good. I've never even seen that game before. I'm like, all right. For premium, though, you know what's weird? So the premium titles, 3 of them went live on the 10th. That was like part of the initial 30th anniversary celebration stuff. They're like, oh, here's some classics up on the 10th, which was ahead of time from this announcement. So I thought, okay, there's going to be more. There was just, first the initial titles is Sly 2 Band of Thieves, Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves, and Jak and Daxter the Precursor Legacy, which, little side note there, obviously, we already had Jak and Daxter. This version is on the updated implicit conversions emulator, so you get the save states, rewind video presets, new trophy list, native PS5 version. The additional game next to those 3 is Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge PSVR 2. So really, we only got like 1 extra game in addition to the 3 that we already knew about. But I'll tell you, the 3 games we did get, though, it's only 3 titles. That's like easily the best premium lineup we've probably had.
That's good stuff. 3 PS2 games.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, Jak was already on there, obviously. But like if you're into trophies, they literally, because the thing is, John, like with the new emulator, you get the 4 and 5 versions. You get 2 like title ID'd games on PSN. You can launch both these games and get yourself 2 platinum, son. Now, listen, me over here, I've played Jak probably 20 plus times in the last 20 years. And I've probably platinum the first game like 6 or 7 times. Now you're telling me I can do it another 2 times on the main account? It's a big deal.
Sir. You going to platinum over the holiday?
It's weird with these games, right? It's like, oh, well, obviously that's like good video fodder for me, so I might throw it into something else. I mean, the audience knows I do the platinum challenges and things like that, so I don't know where I'll end up doing it, but you bet your bottom dollar it'll be done at some point.
How long does it take to platinum Jak?
Well, if it's like your first time, probably 10 plus hours. You know, it could get in the neighborhood of 15. If you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, like under 10.
Oh, okay. That's not bad.
No, not bad at all. And then Sly 2 and 3 are kind of in the same ballpark. 3 got a decent size bigger. You have to like grind out some of the coins to buy all the gadgets and everything near the end. I think that's the same for 2 as well. Actually, I should also mention for Sly 1, just briefly saw this, did not get the chance to look into this further. Sly 1 was updated. It looks like that game got a resolution bump. So
I haven't checked that either.
Might be a little bit sharper, which I think might also be the case for 2 and 3. Haven't had the chance to actually check in on them, but because that was like a complaint with the new PS2 emulators. Like, wow, these games don't really look like they're bumped up in resolution at all. But
yeah, when they first put it up, I remember that. So I haven't checked in a little while. Maybe I will just to see how it's looking now.
It does seem like
something about getting the platinum for these classic games is just fun. I don't know.
Oh yeah. And it seems like maybe they did something for Sly 1, so good stuff there. That's our last lineup for PS Plus, so we'll see what we get
for the
in January. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, that's a solid lineup there. Even like the extra stuff, I liked Fist Forge. That's a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Forspoken, it's easier to recommend when it's like, hey, just give it a download. I'm not telling you to buy it for $70. That's a game that it sees some updates, but it's a very different kind of game. The writing's not good, but the like the gameplay is it's different, and it's a pretty looking game at times too. So I don't know, it's something interesting to just fire up and see what you think.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. Forspoken is very much in that like sort of like Rise Son of Rome or like Order 1886, or it's like you don't want to like pay for it, but if you just like get it on a whim, you might actually
You
have
got
some
it now.
fun
You got to
with
stay away from Ryan. I'm the very unpopular person now with my gaming stuff currently. I
it.
told people Dragon Age will be looked back on fondly someday. I said Assassin's Creed Shadows combat's looking pretty clean. It's over for me.
I like you have the most insanely vanilla take sometimes, and I'm like, why is this guy getting in trouble?
I'm telling you. I made the mistake of talking about the game itself there.
John will
So
be out
my
here.
bad.
He'll send out a spicy tweet. This is good. Whoa, John, that's
I know.
3 words. Holy somebody stop this man.
That's why I like you, Ryan. You stay off of like Twitter. It gets crazy on there.
Yeah, I can't. Man. It's weird. It's weird. Like 5 years ago, I used to be pretty active on Twitter, and I hardly ever tweet now. Let's move on to another story here. We've got a new PS5 firmware out, 24.0810.40. We've improved the process of transferring data from another PS5 and enhanced the stability when transferring large amounts of data, such as captures. We've improved the messages and usability on some screens. I actually have a little story about this.
Mhm.
Slight story. I like it's not often people are going to be doing this, right? Like the transfer like from one console to another set. You might do it once or twice normally, right? I've done it a few times now because sometimes it's just for videos. The recent one I did for the Pro, this actually happened. The system transfer happened. I moved over 350 gigabytes. Captures did not go over. I don't know if so it's I'm like, wow, they actually just like just shipped a firmware that acknowledges that problem. Because the weird thing with captures, right, is like you can always offload them to the PlayStation app or
Right.
a USB stick. But if you want captures to live like on the console, like if you want to like open up the media gallery, see your screenshots and videos on the console, you have to do it from a system transfer or a backup and restore. So like if you check
Oh.
if you didn't do that and you check your Pro, your media gallery is empty. Like you lose all
Usually
that.
usually I move to a USB stick, which when I put it on my PC, like Adobe hates the way that PlayStation like records stuff for some reason. It'll throw the
Really?
colors all out of whack. So what I have to do is I have to use the share factory thing on the PS5 that edits the video.
And
I'll
export
go in
them
there and
again?
you go in there, you cut it a little bit and export it, and it'll turn it into an MP4 that Adobe can figure
Ah.
out, but it exports it at like some low bit rate. So it's like looking sketchy anyway. And it's a whole thing with that. But
What
I,
file do they spit out? Like that like .webp or something?
it's
Is that
something like that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But it's the HDR stuff. Like it for some reason Adobe just doesn't understand the color spectrum that the PS5 puts out. So
Mhm.
it looks kind of funky. So you try to restore it or figure out ways to do it. Maybe if I used a different video editing, it would work, but it's I don't know, it's strange.
All right. Well, either way, they actually did fix a
Mhm.
little issue. So there you go. Really, the more exciting update here was a system features update, which is different from a firmware update. You don't have to actually like go through the normal firmware process. Your console will prompt you in the top right, like, hey, restart, and there's going to be new features. And when you did that on Monday, you were prompted with something I genuinely did not think the company would do, which was celebrate the 30th anniversary in a very cool way, which was your boot up screen was now the iconic Sony Computer Entertainment splash screen. It didn't like transition to the PS1 logo, but it would like say 30th anniversary and things like that. Then it would get you to the main home screen. Then on the home screen, you would then have the option to slightly customize your basically the welcome hub and then the tile across most of the games. So you can choose a generation of PlayStation between 1, 2, 3, 4, or just a generic 30th anniversary like imagery thing you can set. But from there, you'll be able to see like the PS2's iconic towers or a PS1 console across your tile of games, the PS3 XMB, the PS4's dynamic waves, and it's very cool. I mean, I really did not think they would do something like that. I don't know. It's just it's super nostalgic. I was like, wow, that's pretty dope.
Did that catch you off guard when you restarted it and boom, PS1 blared at you?
Well, I didn't. This is one of those things where like, the internet beat me to it. So like I saw it on the timeline and I'm like, it would have been super cool if I saw that.
My PS5 was on and I was playing.
Oh, no way.
And the thing came up and it was like PS5 updated. And MVG was like messaged me in a chat and was like, yo, the PS5 just updated. And it's like for the 30th anniversary. I was like, oh, I'll quit out. So I quit out of my game and I restarted. And it did. It hit me with the PS1 screen. I was like, what is this? What is happening? It was really cool.
That would have been so cool if I had seen it like that. It was
pretty awesome.
It's so dope. It's still, so here's the thing. It's still going on only for a limited time, which a lot of people out here asking, why can't this stay? Because it does live in settings now. So like if you go to your settings, because it's like server side, I imagine at this point, but like in settings is where you can change the generation.
Like at the top, it's like its own thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's cool, there's like little Easter eggs you can spot, like even settings changes. So like the hue of the settings background, where it's usually like an amber glow, that'll like get super dark if it's PS3. It'll get purple looking if it's PS1 or PS2. There's also a shutdown animation. Like they really do kind of, they hit a few things in there, but only for a limited time. Which I don't know why they wouldn't, leave it in there, unless it's like they just don't want to have to worry about like the small memory budget that it's like,
I do notice that I did notice that it's not, it's cool, but it's not like this high quality theme necessarily. It's kind of just like, here's a PNG that looks, and it's transparent, so it flows over. And it's like, okay. And I assume, because I noticed this, there are some menus, it just blocks stuff and it's kind of in the way sometimes. So I was like, this is really cool. And then like the next day I'm like, man, this thing isn't just kind of getting in the way now. And maybe they kind of know that too. It's like, well, we're not going to keep that in there unless we made more of an effort. This kind of feels like that thing where they were like, let's get a few interns. We'll kind of get together a little bit and do that. It's not going to be, hey, let's get the engineers and let's figure this out. The thing though, it opens up to me though, Ryan, is the idea of just themes in general, because it's clearly they can do it to where they can set this up. It can have sounds that go along, sound effects. They can all boot up.
PS3's XMB clicks.
Yeah. I'm noticing all this stuff. Even like the PS2 sound is there. If you have the PS1, they have the memory card up there, and like the cross media bar, little news ticker thing. Is it like they have so many things that they can do with themes? All I'm seeing are all these elements to where when Ghost Yote comes out, they could have a theme with that, and like all this stuff changes on your PS5, and like it seems like cool things they could do. And unfortunately for them, they've now opened like this Pandora's box that I've seen, and like you should do this more often. I think it'd be really fun.
Well, that's what I was also going to add, is like, as cool as it is kind of goofy, because it is like it's on the top. They just take over the top of the screen, or the bottom if you evoke the control center. It's like, it's cool, but like when you scroll through your games, like you've got like a giant XMB wave like just jetting over like the background art for games. So like, yes, cool, but also it's very out of place. Also, like the PS2 one kind of looks bad. It's like kind of low res, and yeah, it's just like a floating PNG. So like I love the effort, but I think it still is kind of clunky and in execution. But having said that, I don't feel any different on the whole theme thing, because the argument is I've always felt that they've designed the console in a manner where the themes of your games, like you're going to have to override all the background images for a theme to be in place. I feel like the console was probably designed in such a manner where like they just don't want to offer that anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, the thing is too, like it would be similar to PS4 in that when that console had themes, you could still scroll downward on a game page. This would be the game hub in this case. Then the background image for the game would appear. It's all up to preference, obviously. I didn't like that on PS4. I liked how it was similar to PlayStation 3, where when you're hovering over software, you immediately get a track from the game the image takes over the screen. And so I don't know. I feel like I'm one of the few that's like willing to say like I'm fine with themes not being a thing, and I prefer like how the UI was designed. Having said
Okay.
that, I think themes are always like options are always better. So I don't think they're going to do it.
No. Yeah, it seemed like a little thing they decided to make an exception for just because 30 years is a big deal. But
Yeah.
it's going to be one of those things where I assume you already have, Ryan, capture all the footage you can of being like, look, this is what it was like when we had this stuff. 'Cause
Yeah.
they're going to take it away, and you won't really be able to do much. You won't be able to go back to it.
Yeah. Archiving it. There's not much to archive. Just, hey, here's what it looks like on each screen. And then at a certain point, they will come and take it away. But it was still a very nice gesture. Now, the following day, on the actual 30th anniversary, they also put out a thank you video, which it was cool. I mean, I can certainly like sit down and appreciate what's basically like a promo video. So, it would throw all these like different cuts from various different PlayStation games, and it would say it's about blank. So it could be adventure, family, love, fantasy. Had all these cool transitions showing, PS1 games and their modern entries. Multiple iconic first and third party franchises were represented. Plenty of new and old showing up as well. Some of my favorite ones were it's about resistance. It's about creativity, Little Big Planet. It's about mischief, Katamari, and it's about heroics, Jak and Daxter. What'd you think of that video?
I thought you would have been more about the Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, that was nice too. They were all good. They were all good.
Yeah. What about persistence?
What's funny is like I'm so over Bloodborne. Like I love the game, but why does this have to keep happening? I'm just over it. Like
I feel like if they just did a patch that unlocked the frame rate, people would get off them.
Well, but that's free, John. Are you nuts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, technically you're right, but like that's the biggest thing. If people are just that's all they're asking for is just to unlock the frame rate in some way, which people in the modding scene have already done it with the PS4.
It's actually far along on Shad PS4 now. Like it's bootable and like I don't think the whole game is playable, but like they're in like the Hunter's Dream. And last time I checked, it's like, this is the point I always make. It's like, you guys have to do something with this game or else it's just going to it's just going to be emulated. You're just losing sales.
It seems like if you were Sony and you'd look at that and say, we'll call their bluff. It's a $70 remake. What's up? People would be like, well, all right. People would just say, okay, sure.
It would be the most like that meme of like the credit card and take it, take my money. Like it's the easiest W, and they just don't. They're like running out of time. The game's getting emulated. People are tired of waiting, and it is. I will say this: like they know what they're doing. You stuck it at the end, saying it's about persistence. You guys.
Oh yeah. They clipped it together. They put the video together. Like it wasn't like it was kind of buried in there. It's like here's Shadow of the Colossus, here's Jak and Daxter, here's Bloodborne, here's Ratchet. It was like right at the end, the zoom in, everything. It was right there. So
Demon Souls was in the middle. Demon Souls was like in the middle, and then Bloodborne was the last one. Like you guys are not doing yourself any favors unless you are doing something with this game, which as far as we know still isn't happening.
It's calling it the Game Awards.
Yeah, it's not happening.
There it is. Hey, if it does, though, we got you right there on the record.
I would love to be wrong, but
how much do you pay? How much do you pay for that, Kami? Yes, there was the first console I bought with my own money, and I enjoyed it a lot. Were you there at 600? The 600 mark?
I was.
That was a tough system to buy with your own money back then.
I was pretty young, dude. Like I was still like saving, and like I was like on copium. I'm like, oh man, this console is gonna be great.
This is going to appreciate in value.
I sold my 360 back then to afford it.
Wow.
Now think about that. At the time I sold what was arguably a much better system for the one that like over time obviously became amazing, and I love it. But
yeah.
Initially, oof.
But like that first half of the generation, it was like all 360. So
pretty much, yeah. I got my time in on some of those year one 360 games.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of, well, not really the greatest segue, but let's move on to PlayStation wrap up 2024. which isn't working.
I can't get it. I was hoping I'd have it so we could go over it here. Let me just double check, make sure right now. Is it?
Yeah, I haven't checked in like maybe this morning,
sure.
so maybe it's still broken.
We'll be back soon.
I think this is the longest it's been broken, actually. Like the last 2-3 years, it definitely like had issues the first day, but it was like usually working by day 2.
Man,
PlayStation.
I was hoping I'd be able to go through it. I wanted to show people the stuff that I was curious how many hours. My Xbox one was like 700 some odd hours. I want to see what my PlayStation one was.
I better see it. Oh wait, what platform were you playing Literature Club on? Doki Doki.
PlayStation. PS5.
I better see that in the top 5.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that game's not even long to beat.
It is if you sit there and read.
Well, I have like 80 hours in Rebirth. I assume that's the number one.
Oh, probably.
I assume that's one.
Yeah, PlayStation wrap up is still broken. Can't figure out what I played this year. Mine's probably embarrassing.
What do you think your number one game is?
Because like I'm so behind on a lot of this year's games, but like it's a lot of 2023 stuff. 2023 stuff spilled over. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like Final Fantasy 16, because I was still cleaning that game up. I also started Vampire Survivors this year, which was like such an easy like pick up and put down kind of game, which over time accumulated to like 50 something hours. And Astrobot, which isn't long per se, but like I spent like arguably more time with it than most people probably did. And
no, I got more time on that game.
You think so? Oh, your kids.
I bet I do.
Yeah.
Right. I think I got to double check, but
for a grown man, I spent a lot with it.
I think my Astrobot time on the it tells you like at the bottom right, the PS. I think it's like 52 hours.
Yeah, that's like maybe double mine.
they beat it, and then they're like, "Hey, we restarted Astrobot." I'm like, why? Why'd you restart it? We're gonna play it again.
Oh, man, that's
Astro's Playroom is like 50 some odd hours too, I think.
Well, that's definitely a lot for Playroom.
They just like playing it. That's all. They were freaking out about the update coming. I'm sure we'll get to. But they just like Astro. They like Astro.
That was the story after this one, but we'll just mention that real quick then. Astrobot, free festive DLC with new special bots. It's out tomorrow. So if you're listening right now, if you're here live during this live show, which is live, it's not available. But tomorrow it will be.
You did all the speedrun levels too?
Yep, I did them. That monkey one was fun.
Do you think there's any so I know there's a few that have been rumored outside of the one that I'm thinking of from the PS1 days, I'll say. What do you think there's any special bot here that they're going to have?
I would presume. It looks like this is like a full-blown level, so like there's another like 3 or 4 at least you're going to get in this
They said it's not like a challenging level or anything, so it's going to be kind of like I don't want to say a tour, but it'll be it's not going to be like something's going to keep killing you over and over again, so.
Right.
I have an idea as to a bot I think is in there, but
well, don't say it, John. You know what you're known for.
I think it's going to be Santa. A Santa bot.
No.
You don't think so? They're going to have a Santa bot? What?
I mean, no.
Oh.
They better be just PlayStation characters. In fact, every one of them should be PlayStation characters. What's up with these generic ones? I'm not going to save you. Got to be somebody I know.
Oh yeah, and because Nate was making fun of me earlier, I'm gonna out him on this with my Xbox wrap up thing. Nate played 260 some odd hours of WWE 2K24.
Didn't you also probably do the same
year? What's that?
Didn't you probably also play the same amount?
Yeah. I don't mind though. He's like, I'm not telling people about this. I just told everybody. Everybody here.
Somebody.
Nate played a lot of wrestling this year.
Yeah, Dragon Ball 223 brought up a great point. He was able to check the wrap up, and they didn't remove Concord, but because Concord was delisted, that means like the metadata for it was like gone.
Oh.
So if you like actually did play enough of that game to where it shows up in the wrap up, it's just like a generic placeholder image and it says Concord.
Man, they really erased that thing. That's crazy.
Gone. It is gone. We will talk later about a preservation story, which it's not actually gone, but for your eyes, yeah, shit's dead. Let's move on to my first Gran Turismo, PS4, PS5, that is available right now. which was, part of the original 30th anniversary announcements, just like kind of a demo Gran Turismo game. There's 3 race events, 3 time trials, 3 music rally stages, as well as a full suite of licensed tests. Included are 18 unique cars, and available tracks are the Kyoto Driving Park, Deep Forest Raceway, and Trial Mountain Circuit with full PSVR 2 support as well. So if you do have a headset, that is a great chance to check that game out, because it really is to me, it's like a system seller. It's that good on PSVR 2.
Yeah, that's actually the biggest part. When I read that, I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. If you have a VR headset, it'll probably sell you on it.
I've got this one lined up too. I thought this was funny. Horizon ripoff announced. Light of Motoram.
I think it's Motrium.
Is it Motrium? That how you pronounce that?
I went through a bunch of pronunciations. I'll do this sometimes because it's one of those situations where I look at a word and I'm like, I don't know if I've ever heard, or a title for something, I don't know if I've ever heard someone say this out loud. So I have to like think about it a bit, and I'll go around looking. It's usually for people's names too. You ever see that one executive where they're like, "Oh, we talked to this person. There's an interview." I'm like, okay, it's like Josh, and then you see the last name. You're like, "Whoa, how do I say that?" So usually I'll go around. That was one where I went around and people were saying it that way.
Oh yeah, this is something where I'm sure you are as well. Like, I'm always mindful of this. Like, before I even so much as utter the pronunciation of a word, I will do every attempt in my book to like figure out how the hell you say it correctly. This one though, given what it is, I was like, it's Light of Motoram.
Let me see again. Light of Motiram.
Well,
got it.
The real news here is that it was announced by Tencent, coming to PC and console. Open world survival crafting game with primitive tribes and then machines that are acting as the local fauna. It looks a lot like Horizon, top to bottom.
They showed the 1 minute like trailer, and I was like, okay, this is that we have Horizon at home moment when they were showing it. But then did you watch they had like 16 minutes of gameplay?
That's the thing, right? The the 1 minute trailer, it's like, dude, this is Horizon. But then the gameplay, it's like, this is not even close to Horizon.
It feels very purposeful though, because they know if they put the trailer that way, it'll get them a lot of interest and talking points, and people will be bringing it up. So and then the gameplay, as we see, it's not even close to Horizon. Yeah. So I remember there was I think it was Genshin Impact that looked, when they first put out a trailer, looked very similar to Zelda. Yeah. People were like, what is the, but then the game comes out and it doesn't play like Zelda. So I feel like this is almost a strategy that seems to work for, many of these games coming out of China, sure, but Tencent, I think, kind of has a lot of this stuff figured out.
What's funny too about this is, I guess Sony, at least in China, were like totally like on board with it. Like, their official social media channels were tweeting it and stuff or something. So I don't know. They're fine with it. Initially, I thought
they probably saw the game. They probably understand they've seen the whole thing, and like then there's this trailer that gets cut up, and they're like, "What? Okay, whatever. We're gonna still make money on this thing."
It wasn't until I saw gameplay where I'm like, "Oh, they're probably fine with this." But like, my God, the sort of initial look of it, I'm like,
it was like that.
Is this really what we're doing?
It looked kind of shameless. I'll say that. I was like, "Oof, okay."
Not the first time, obviously. So it happens. This one was actually kind of a big deal. So kind of a high profile return coming to PlayStation Studios in the games business. That is Ralph Grassetti. He was previously the art director on God of War Ragnarok, and he's also like a long-term SIE veteran. He's been with the company for like 10 years. I think it was only like 1 year just externally or something, or working at XDev. I have no idea, but he was like doing 9 years at Sony Santa Monica. So he left like just under 2 years ago, did some time at Netflix working on whatever sort of AAA nonsense they were doing. He just recently announced he's back at Naughty Dog as art director. So sometimes we always see there's a handful of names in the business sometimes that be a lot of eyes on what they're doing. So Ralph is back at PlayStation Studios.
I think he's working on the new IP or The Last of Us 3.
Well, it's an art director role, kind of an important one. So, do what you will with that information.
I'd like to think that their new IP is a little further along than like, okay, let's get the art director now.
It's tough to say. I mean, they're a pretty big studio. There's a big hierarchy with how many people get moved around as certain productions ramp up and other ones kind of start to settle down. So never know. It looks like Monster Hunter.
It does. The stream will stay up.
Mm-hmm.
O-line, Stan, we got you.
This will be a proper episode.
Oh, there it is, Ryan. We're working on Jack 4. Let's go.
And not if it looks like what was out of the original concept art.
Oh,
from like a long time ago. That
can be kind of terrifying if it was like ultra realistic looking.
That's the thing, right? Like everyone always asks for more Jack. As a Jack fan myself, like I don't know if that's I can't say that's what I want. Like it's gonna be so different. I don't know. I can't really get behind the whole like we need Jack 4. Are you sure about that? Are you sure you really want that?
Need Jack in a bunch of all kinds of moral dilemmas.
You sure you're gonna like be okay with their like modern interpretation of it? Like I don't know.
What if they get Tom Holland?
Oh, well. I think that illustrates my point. Let's move on to the Sony Bend leak that happened today. This was reported by MP First. An online art portfolio of a UI designer was discovered. They worked at Bend from 2022 until March of this year, and we've got a handful of screenshots and concept art for their game. Now we've got what appears to be based on well, there's one clip and then there's like a handful of screenshots. Based on those screenshots, it looks to be a third-person shooter with military elements just based on like the character model and the weapons. There's also some kind of like hub room in one of the screenshots showing off like different labeled areas where you could like go to the hub director area, wardrobe, rank, transfer section A, just a handful of things like that. You can see them up here.
Too,
yeah, just certain UI elements. We can just sort of glean that, okay, like it's probably a little bit more grounded in reality. And we also, from that last screen, we can see it's, probably indeed from their work at Bend because they're using placeholder Days Gone art, which is a very common thing as well. And here's where you can see all these like little hub areas. So it's really important to clarify initially, right? So we already knew a little bit about where this game was going because 2022 is when they formally announced that they would be making a new IP with multiplayer. That was announced 2 years ago, based on the open world systems that they established in Days Gone. We already knew this. So I know some people are, grabbing their pitchforks about live service or multiplayer, but
hey, it was coming.
we knew the game was going in this direction. Moreover, we also had the 2024 business segment briefing, and we saw that breakdown of PlayStation studios, and they were categorized, in different specialties, one being single player, one being live service, one also being evolving / multi-genre, which the studios in there was Guerrilla, Polyphony, and Media Molecule, and also Bend. Now, evolving multi-genre is kind of this encompassing thing because like Media Molecule was like with Dreams, you could see what they're going for there. Guerrilla has multiple teams and different projects coming out. So that's evolving multi-genre. Same for Polyphony. So I would suspect based on just that alone, before even getting these screenshots, that there's still going to be a certain element to this game that is not strictly like super heavy multiplayer live service. Although clearly it's going to have it. I mean, the other point to mention before I let you throw in some thoughts on this is like making Days Gone, the studio wanted to include multiplayer elements in that game. They always wanted to do this, so it's, I don't know. I mean, there's not really a whole lot else we could pick up on this outside of just having a general idea of maybe where this game's going.
You think so? It's a new IP, right? They've already mentioned this before. I do wonder if, all right, so you see the reaction online to the live service idea in multiplayer and stuff. It's not great. Like people look what happened. We know what happened with Concord. It's not like their most recent outing is the one that people are going to point to. People aren't pointing to Helldivers 2. So if we go all the way through this game, military third person shooter is what we're getting, the tone we're getting from what these art assets and stuff, this portfolio. You go all the way through the trailer and they have their banner for the new IP and people some grown because it's live service. But then you rewind and it's like, it's not a new IP. We get all the way through it. And at the end, SOCOM comes up. I feel like then people wouldn't, it'd be the same thing, but I feel like people wouldn't be that mad about it. Is like that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. If it was, well, see, I've made this point before where it's like, if it's like, is this really what you want from like those? Do you want them to take SOCOM and like turn it into live server? Like, you know what I mean, John? Like, I don't know. If it's a new IP live service, it's a problem. If it's an established property that's like, let's say SOCOM or Resistance or
right,
Killzone, like, do you really want that to be turned into live service? I don't know that I don't know that I would. I mean, what I miss from those games is what they were, which was more like arena shooters and
sure.
Yeah, maybe you'd get like a map pack, another map pack. Like that's just not the business nowadays. So I feel like people keep asking for things that they don't actually want.
You know, vibes I was getting from some of these screenshots too, now I think about it, is like Outriders. That was sort of like that third person live. They kept saying it wasn't live service, but it was like multiplayer action adventure PvE kind of stuff. That's sort of what I'm getting from these screenshots. If I had to like compare it to something, although it's very early on, we don't have textures on the stuff, so
sure,
it's hard to exactly say. But I mean, they were trying to date this around that 2022, 2023 time. So this does seem like early on ideas and stuff. But it being a multiplayer military shooter, that would make sense for Sony to try to do something like that because it's a spot in their, I assume, their lineup that they'd like to have something that can be ongoing and continue to update. It just continues to clash, I'm sure, with what the louder fan base online says, which is just stick to single player, don't do multiplayer. But it seems very important for Sony to keep trying the multiplayer stuff in like smart ways. I still think a military third person shooter would make sense for them. Not first, but like they get enough money from Call of Duty. I don't even think they really want to try to compete with that anyway. Third person military shooter, call back a bit to SOCOM. I think that could work.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's the other like argument that's always been placed on the whole live service thing. I think it's easy to look at the number of titles and complain about that, but they are going about it in a very strategic way, and that they are different genres. It's not 12 hero shooters. It's, you know, we had car combat with Destruction All Stars, possibly another take with established IP, it being Twisted Metal, which that was canceled. But you know, we would have had, you know, Last of Us multiplayer would have been that. You know, Haven is doing a heist style game. Helldivers 2 is a third person, you know, shooting bug type PvE style game, and then this would probably have some, I don't know, a PvP and PvE elements. Like it's hard to say. Like it's all speculation, but they're experimenting in a lot of different genres, which they should be doing.
Let me ask you this, Ryan, because you were a Days Gone person. I'm not the Days Gone guy. I've already admitted this. Were you deflated a bit when you heard that they were going to push for the multiplayer potential live service thing, and then you see this? As a Days Gone fan yourself, that's Ben's project?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
No, I mean, Ben historically is good with third person shooters, so I think you can kind of.
I mean, for you, like you in general, you're like, oh, it's the multiplayer live service online thing potentially.
Nah, I mean, I already knew this was going to have multiplayer to some degree, and I almost certainly it was not going to be arena shooter style.
We can get you in there then. We can run some of this for a special Click R3 plays.
You really just want me to play video games.
You, me, and Nana, we can run through some of the stuff.
You sicko. Play video games with other people.
Hey, you're playing. What were you playing the other day? What is this thing? Tornado something?
Tornado Outbreak, son. PSR episode's finally coming out.
I see that. It's a
good game. Yeah, I don't know. I guess like really punch this home. This was 2022 when they made that announcement. Now we don't know how far along they were with that game. I still presume this thing's pretty far away. You're
also going to get this a lot, Ryan.
Yeah.
As a Pixie Hunter says, is that wish it was Days Gone too. You're going to get that when the announcement happens like that. And it is a military third person multiplayer game. It's still going to be like, why isn't this just Days Gone 2? That's another thing. It's going to start off on a kind of behind the eight ball for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the game did sell well. It's got a lot of devoted fans, but we also have to remember that Bend internally chose not to do it. It was never a matter of Sony saying no. Bend had this sort of internal conflict, and one director won, one director left the studio. Well, two. And, it's kind of like, some turmoil with the studio. There's some history there, but the long and short of it is Bend themselves just decided not to do it. So,
well, if it's a game with wardrobe and stuff, they could have Deacon in there as like a skin or something. There you go. Just $9.99.
A Deacon skin. That's just gonna be one of those things where like the Deacon skin shows up, gets shared on Twitter as a screenshot, gets 20,000 something retweets, and people clowning on the game. This is really the environment we want nowadays. I don't know, John. I don't know. I don't think so.
It's very compatible with social media to hate it.
I know literally everything they do. They can't even so much appreciate their own properties nowadays without the shit going up on Reddit. Let's move on to this is a very brief thing. Sony confirms their interest in acquiring Kadokawa. Big shocker here. This was spotted from Yahoo Japan, the weekly Japanese magazine, Bunshun. Got a quote from a Sony representative that states, and I quote here, "It is true that we have expressed our initial intentions of acquiring Kadokawa. We would appreciate it if we could refrain from commenting further." Considering Kadokawa already confirmed this, I don't think we really needed the other party to say anything, but
I mean, it's being transparent with the stock market for them anyway was in such flux. It was all over the place. Like Kadokawa was spiking because of anticipation or speculation. To me, at this point, it's probably a good idea to just come out and be upfront. Like, yeah, okay, we were doing that. Just to get everything out there. Kadokawa says yes. Sony says yes. Apparently, there's optimism at Kadokawa around the idea of this happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of thinking this is going to happen. I think it sounds like the way they're describing it. This is a thing. And I don't know if we're going to hear about it before the end of the year, because it's the 11th of December as of recording this. It wouldn't shock me if we got it before the end of the year, though, if it was like that. And they're both commenting this much on it.
Yeah. I like we said before, if it's when Kadokawa said they received an initial letter of intent, my understanding of that is always like, hey, we've talked about this. Well, we're actually kind of far along in the negotiations. Now, if it's in like advanced stages or not, I wouldn't know, but it's my understanding that it's not like that's not the first knock on the door. Like this has happened. And we had more insight from that Bloomberg report implying that, hey, they've actually always sort of floated around this idea. And it's just, they weren't meeting eye to eye on like how much commitment one company was going to get from the other, which in this case now, Sony has money. This would be a good investment. There's a lot of verticals that do fall into place between both organizations. So yeah, I would not surprise me at all if we see this go through. Not even a little bit.
No, it'll be more interesting to see what happens after the deal, like one way or the other. That's what everyone's like. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Especially because
I can lead to layoffs, and
yes, exactly. They don't like that Bloomberg report made so much sense. I'm like, yes, they don't want all of Kadokawa. They don't want all these different segments. Like they want the anime stuff. That's really, I read that. I'm like, oh, yep, I can see why this hasn't happened before, but either way, we'll see what happens. Let's move on to our next story here. This, I always love when we get more information on vaporware, games that were just missing for a long time, and now we finally know what went down. I'm talking about the PS4 exclusive Wild.
Oh, finally.
Dude, this game was announced in 2014. I think it was at Gamescom 2014. Sony was going to publish it. Yeah. Really weird game, by the way. It's like you're this like tribalistic sort of dude, but you can communicate with animals and you can like control the animals. And so like we had a trailer and everything. It was a big deal. It was one of those early PS4 exclusives that were announced, just like Deep Down, which is also dead. But with
allegedly.
Allegedly. Well, with Wild, that game went
Game Awards is tomorrow, Ryan.
Deep Down coming back.
You never know. Man.
I sometimes look back at that Deep Down trailer and I'm like, this shit still looks pretty cool. And it never happened. Well, anyway, Wild went MIA for a long time. The game's director, Michel Ancel, left the games industry in 2020. But he said the game was still coming, which back in August of this year is when like the studio finally said, yeah, we're not working on that. I don't know why they finally decided to say that now, but we're now hearing from Michel again on what exactly went wrong. So speaking with Super Pouvoir, he said back in 2018 they had a playable version, but it was taking too long to upgrade the game for PlayStation 5. So it seems like they had every intention of maybe doing a cross-gen release or something. But this was also around the time that Sony's management side was changing and the game was stopped. And so apparently what happened here is that Ubisoft offered to take over the entire thing. And Sony actually still wanted to publish the game. So they offered to double the game's budget, and the studio couldn't accept because they were already in advanced stages and in advanced contracts with Ubisoft. So from there, Michel left, and he wasn't able to defend the scope and direction of the game. So Ubisoft's editorial department in Paris stepped in, asked for a lot of changes, and then it just all went south from there. So now we got some actual insight into what happened with that game.
Another chance to throw Ubisoft under the bus.
Dude, that's not the first time we've heard about this from Ubisoft. It's like in their culture, this like team that steps in and sort of just micromanages what the game is supposed to be. And it like even like the few times that I've like done like little research topics into separate things, like this is historically what happened with Haze. They just stepped in and fucked with it too much. Like it's crazy.
That has kind of been Ubisoft's MO with these kind of things, these projects, is that they do oversee them. Like they get, like you mentioned, micromanage a bit too much. And I mean, I will say, I think over the last 10 years, I feel like that's just hurt them in general. Like it's, they clearly have a set of steps they do for a lot of these big budget open world games, and they've stuck to it so much so that I feel like people just got fatigued and bored of it. In this case, hey, if you're as he's mentioning, is just micromanaging to where it's not fun to work on the project anymore. Interesting. It's like you got creatives and you keep telling them what to do. Eventually, they're just gonna be like, all right, I'm out.
Well, at least with Michel, he also was like, I'm burned out. Like I got to get out of this. Yeah. He even said like, because it was an interesting interview. He was like, yeah, I haven't even played a game in like years. He just got out of it.
Wow. That's what we've talked about before with the games industry, where there's this exodus of talent because one, it's layoffs happen so consistently that it's like there's not a lot of job security. And then two, for the longest time, it was just crunch culture. And people are like, wow, I've spent 5 years working on this game, but it's felt like I spent 20 years working on it because of the amount of hours that get thrown into it constantly. Like the stuff that was going on at Rockstar for the longest time was crazy. Sleep under desks, working like 20-hour days, something insane. So yeah, it's no wonder you hear stories like this where it's almost like they look at it as a horror story. You know, I got to get out of that games industry. So,
well, you know, it's also, I always think about this. This is still such a young industry. Like there are some people that have been here since the very beginning. And now like that generational shift is happening with like senior leadership. Obviously you've got like a lot of young people in the games business now, but that turnover on the very high level is starting to happen a lot more often now.
Javier was asking which game it was. Wild
for PS4, all caps except the I. That's how it was. That's how it was stylized
back then.
That's a bit. Hey, you know what? Every generation has like vaporware. So like this gen, we're still waiting on what's it called? Little Devil Inside. But that's been getting milestone like updates.
That got some updates. Yeah. I think that's gonna come out.
I hope so. I want to go back to the first PS5 reveal and like look at every trailer. I think most of that stuff did come out actually.
Infamous. Yeah. Apparently they would ask them to like press. They'd ask them to actually write it that way. They're like, we're not doing that. We're just gonna write it normally.
Yeah, you have to. I'm the only person. I feel like I'm the only person that does this. I will check official sites and make sure like how are they stylized in this game, and I'll double check with like, oh, is it subtitled with the colon or without? You know, where do they capitalize what letters? I'm the only person that writes PSVR 2 correctly. You space it. It's PS space VR2. Nobody spells PSVR2 correctly. Not a soul. Nobody does it.
Oh man.
I do. I heard my own SEO, so I can be correct.
It's PS. It's like the additional thing that you're telling them VR2.
It is weird how they stylize it like that, but apparently they do it that way. I don't know. Yeah, so we got that. Let's move on to actually more Ubisoft news here. Another PSSR too. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. This is another Ubisoft game where PSSR has introduced some shimmering and also visual artifacts. And it's the only mode available as well. So when you patch the game, like that's the only way to play it now. There's like these weird visual oddities going on your new professional console that costs a lot of money. So you can't access the base settings. And the studio has already acknowledged the problem that they said they're going to deploy a hot fix and they'll let players disable PSSR and also offer the old performance and quality modes. So you can turn those on in the interim if you need to. So
you spell it like Wipeout.
Hey, I double check. I spell it how it's supposed to be spelled. You can go back to video titles, go back to descriptions. You might find 1 or 2 out of 1,200 uploads, but generally I try to be correct.
I did pick up Avatar on the PS5 specifically during the Black Friday sale. It's like $20 physically. Mm-hmm. So I got that because I thought it would be interesting to use on the PS5 Pro when they get a patch for it and set up. And here we are now, and it's not a great time to even check it. So I guess I have to wait. That is the drawback. While I said I like the way that Ubisoft was handling some of these games where you don't even play around with a mode or anything. So like Assassin's Creed Mirage looks good, runs well. You get these situations and it's like, well, you're locked in. So there's not much you can do now. That's just how it is. So there's a lot of trust on their technical ability to be able to get it right. I'd like to think that this is kind of that early adoption growing pain time period. And that as we go along, PSSR will be much more, I guess, much more figured out, and you won't go through this, but it makes recommending the console nearly impossible sometimes.
Nearly
it does.
impossible.
I mean, think about it. It's like it's $700, and then you're going to get this version of the game that you can't control. And I've seen like the Digital Foundry videos talking about it, and they just bury the thing half the time.
Obviously it's not a good look. Yeah, it's weird, right? Because it's clearly it would appear as though maybe Ubisoft got the machine. Like a lot of their studios got the console early, and maybe they're just using a really early version of PSSR.
That too.
I mean, it's an AI upscaling solution. Like we all know, like these things get better over time, but these are the worst offenders so far because some games look fantastic.
Yes. We also said though, this is going to be a situation where it might be better for people to wait for Sony to show up with a big first part like Ghost Yote or something, and then buy the PS5 Pro alongside of it when you've confirmed that it has a lot of the visual effects and stuff that you want, like take advantage of on your nice TV or something. And at that point, I assume a lot of the stuff will be smoothed out. Developers will be used to the PS5 Pro. They'll have figured out a lot of the bugs and stuff. So that's still, I think the recommendation I have is to honestly hang out for a bit and just see how 2025 unfolds with releases from Sony. Because the PS5 still, it still deals with it. Like Astrobot, it looks the same basically on both. And yeah, some third-party games run and look better, but I haven't had that aha moment as much other than Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So,
yeah, well said. That's exactly where I think it falls. Maybe you got to be a really big enthusiast buyer to justify it, given the cost. But it seems like they're at least fixing that. Yeah, this should at least be a trend in the interim. If you're going to do pro support, like don't turn off the older modes.
Right.
Leave them there. So
yes, that's a good idea. Just revert back to it if you want to. So
let's move on to PlayStation Tournaments XP. Sony announced a live event that's going to be held in London on January 18th, 2025. Qualifying players around the globe will represent teams based on the face buttons. So say the line, Bart. Team cross, triangle, circle, and square.
Did they say team cross?
There's a team.
Thank you.
As we've
Thank
established internally at SIE, yes, they call it cross. Moving on. You can qualify via regular tournaments online on PS5, and that's where you can earn the trip to London. The qualifiers are open right now for Tekken 8, EA Sports FC 25, and Fortnite. And Astrobot qualifiers are starting on
that's fun. Okay.
December 13th, John. What do you say?
That's fun. That's fun. I'm not doing that. That's fun though.
Oh, all right.
Are you doing any of them?
Absolutely not, but it's still cool. Yeah, this is a live event. A natural step for the company. They partly own Evo. They're actually, pretty deeply involved with esports. So now they're just doing their own named event. I don't know what the long game is here though, because you've got Evo. So
this is more player engagement, I assume, because these events are all going to be using PlayStation. So if you get the competitive scene continuing on, even outside, so you have Evo, then you have other events around the year, even around the globe, you're just going to get more and more people playing on PlayStation for the competitive side. So they'll default to that. And the competitive market, the people buying these things, they're buying expensive fight sticks, expensive controllers, expensive accessories. They would be viewed as the enthusiast community, but also for Sony as kind of part of the whale community in terms of spending money. So I think it makes sense for them with what they've been pushing, which is just getting more money out of the same number of people. So it's kind of what they've been trying to do, and it's been working for them so far. But it's just another initiative, I feel like, just to reach out to the consumer.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Phantom says they've really done an awesome job integrating with PlayStation tournaments. Yeah, I have not touched these at all. It's in the game hub, and that's how you can enter. And I have no experience with them, so I can't actually speak on what it's like. So,
is there a game that, if they said this is it, is there a game, even if it's single player or something, Ryan, where you're I'm good enough, if this was competitive, I'd take a shot?
No, I'm not good enough, so no.
Oh man, just burying yourself immediately.
we're in our 30s. We ain't got the hand-eye coordination for that.
Yeah.
That's a thing in esports. They say what? It's after 25, you're running on a clock or something.
they just get rid of you.
so I don't know. I'm not an esports expert, so if I'm saying the wrong shit, then by all means.
I do feel like I was better at many games when I was 18, 19.
Well, there you go. Hey, you're coked up on Monster Energy drinks.
Oh, dude, when they made the real Mountain Dew Code Red, that's probably illegal now, and they took stuff out of it and never told us. That was in motion. That was it. It was over.
That was the juice you needed.
That was it. People on Halo 2 don't know what hit them.
Oh boy.
Halo 3, Halo 2, there was craziness out there.
John in his heyday.
Telling you, man, it was great. It's why, hey, anyone else out there in those Halo 2 lobbies know what I'm talking about. There was no timer, and people had the time.
Now, see me over here, Killzone 2. Top 1%, baby. Got that gold trophy.
Wow, really?
Yeah, well, now I'm bluffing a little bit here. You had to do it for a week. For a week, you had to be in the top 1 percentile for just total XP or something to get the gold. Did it legitimately, which means I just sat down and played a shitload of Killzone 2 to get the trophy.
That's still pretty good.
It was maybe good in the sense that I wasn't amazing at the game. I was decent, but if you just played enough, chances are you're going to be in the top 1%.
Oh, well.
So that's how I got it.
Was it just cumulative points? So it just added it up for you. You were there.
If I remember, it was basically just the top 1 percentile of players. I mean, this was over 10 years ago. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I never got into the online multiplayer for Killzone 2. So
damn shame. I mean, that was one of those things where everyone was like, "Oh yeah, it's too heavy feeling." It's
it's because we're
built different.
The Call of Duty age where you were just running around like you were on speed.
Yeah, that game's it's so different, in terms of feel. Yes, I do, Real Radic, but I had to boost that one. 2 PS3s. There was an exploit with map packs. You can set up 2
for trophies now. What is this,
dude? 2 PS3s, 2 TVs. It was one of the map packs. You could hold down the trigger on one controller, and then the player would spawn in the same spot. You'd insta kill. I'll let you know. I genuinely tried to do it legitimately. at a certain point you have to like know your limits, and you have to know that it's okay to cheat. So
Okay. There you go. You heard it here.
that's how I have my Resistance 2 platinum. That was a 10-year platinum for me, dude. Shit took so long.
10 years. Wow.
Yeah, because it sat for so long, and then
Wow.
finally like the exploit came out, and I was like, thank God I can sleep at night. So let's move on here, John, to PlayStation VR 2 hand tracking demo. This was shown off during SIGGRAPH Asia 2024. There was a demo showing a cleaning like mini game that uses hand gestures only, no sense controllers. The booth did clarify that this library of features is available on the latest PS5 SDK, also stating that it recognizes 60 FPS with low latency and displays hands smoothly. Currently, there's 12 types of gestures that are detectable, and so that could be things like pinching or grabbing, pointing. Those are all supported, and I guess this is something studios have access to right away. So might have a PSVR 2 game that can start utilizing this. No controller required.
Seems interesting that Sony didn't like this is how we found out about this. It seems kind of strange. I don't know.
Yeah. I thought that at first, but then I also thought, okay, how would they announce it? And how would it like, I don't know. It's like, what are you going to say? Like a tweet, like hand tracking now available, but there's no
I would probably
games.
have made a demo, like a little like tech demo thing people can download and play around with or something. I don't know. Like it'd be kind of fun to, hey, you hit load this up and it drops like marbles all over the place and you can pick them up and throw them or something just in your room, like these little AR marbles or I don't know, something like that would be kind of fun. But it almost feels like Sony, while they sell the PSVR 2 and they'll put it in place, it almost feels like they're, I don't say uninterested, but they're not like, look at this, guys, look at this. This is incredible. It seems like they'd rather talk about other stuff right now than PSVR 2. I don't know. It seems weird because this is actually really cool. Like there could be a lot of interesting games that can not only come over from like this, or the Quest already does this.
Yeah.
The HTC Vive does, but there are a lot of games that can come over, and there are some interesting things I'm sure that devs could do with this if they felt like the money. I know that comes up with the PSVR 2 for developers. Isn't the money there necessarily to spend a bunch of time creating? I feel like this is something where you could even make a smaller game. Like I'm not even kidding, like a $10 or $15 game, and it does kind of feel tech demo-ish, but something fun to just kind of do with the hand tracking. And I very rudimentary example of just having marbles drop everywhere. I don't know, just something fun that you can use it for.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's what it's all about is developer support and making it fiscally like advantageous for them. So I would hope that's the case. I mean, at least in the context of this, where it's like about this being available in the SDK, they're just courting studios. So
what's that game where you have to be like a maestro? I saw that.
Oh yeah. The one I talked about last episode.
I think so.
Yeah.
And you need to use hand tracking for it.
Trombone Champs or something. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
funny.
like
it's a very funny game.
Stuff like that. That'd be kind of cool to have for hand. I mean, it's something that's already kind of used in VR everywhere else. So it's like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of went under the radar. I guess we would find out when the first game happens with it. So,
well, we do have more PSVR 2 tracking type news, which is that Sony is partnering with Apple for PSVR 2 controller support. So we have a Bloomberg report here that an agreement between both Sony and Apple has been in place for PSVR 2 Sense controllers to be compatible with the Apple Vision Pro. And this deal would also allow the Sense controllers to be sold separately on Apple.com and at retail. Apparently, this deal was supposed to be confirmed weeks ago, but the rollout has been postponed because it's been a month of work for Sony to get the controllers working on the Vision Pro, and then Apple has to be in this position of reaching out to studios asking if they want to update their games to use the controllers. This is not exactly how I thought we'd finally get Sense controllers made available a la carte, but I think this is a very smart play.
Is there pricing on that yet? I'm curious how much Sense
controllers
are. Okay.
I would hate for these things to be like $100 or something stupid like that, you know?
I'm envisioning Sony realizing that it would be like the Apple ecosystem VR controller, and that usually means the price goes up because of that.
Well, hold on. So, I mean, the thing is like Apple, I'm not sure if they have Xbox controllers on their site, but they do have DualSense controllers. Like that partnership has been there. Like
Well, yeah,
they,
because I went to get I ended up getting an iPhone, and I went to the store to get it, and they had DualSense controllers out for their iMacs and stuff like that. They had DualSenses all over the place.
yep.
So that is a thing, but I don't know if maybe they were selling them there. I didn't notice it right away, but they were definitely demoing a lot of their games with DualSense controllers. So I assume now the idea would be, okay, when you walk in, because they had the Vision Pro there, there'll be some Sense controllers underneath of it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, Apple will offload certain. They'll partner with certain hardware makers in the interest of like, we don't want to be in this business ourselves. Here's one that we approve of, and it's on our site, and it's compatible with our products. So the DualSense has been that for Apple products for a long time now. So with the Sense controller and the Vision Pro, now granted, the Vision Pro obscenely expensive and
Yeah.
not necessarily something that is flying off the shelves per se. At least in the Apple news, it's apparently there's going to be a lower priced headset that they'll ship
Yep.
eventually, and maybe that will do a bit better. But like I just find this is like financially a smart play from Sony to be in bed with Apple for a partnership like this. Although it sucks that like for people that bought a PSVR 2 and one of their Sense controllers break, like you just have no option to buy them separately.
That has always been really weird. So if anything, you're right. This might spur them on to just start listing it on direct PlayStation Store, even if that's like the limit. You can't go into a store and buy it. At least there's a place to go for replacement.
Yeah.
Because I have one of my Sense, the right one does act up. I have to do a thing where I have to keep resetting it to get it to work again. Sometimes it's still like that.
The left one, had that
But
like issue initially.
it might be the left one because it's the one that controls the menu mostly. So I think it would be. I had to
Probably
keep
that.
turning it off and putting a little reset pin over and over, and then eventually it'll work and it's fine after that. But it definitely has this weird pairing issue that happens consistently. And I've thought about it. I'm like, I wonder if I can just buy a new left one. No, it's not. Even on eBay, they don't pop up as often. And then you're like, am I buying the one that has the same problem that mine has now? Because it's not new. It's out of the box on someone has it laying on their carpet,
Right.
So I wouldn't mind buying another left one from Sony if the price was fair. Maybe this is the way I get it done. I have to go to the Apple store and buy it directly or something.
Well, in that case, though, I'd almost assume you're not buying one; you're buying both.
I'm buying two.
Yeah,
I'm buying both.
Now you're buying both. Yeah. Well, seems like that might be announced soon. And if God forbid, you do have a Vision Pro, then you can actually use your Sense controllers over there.
You didn't buy one of those yet, Ryan? Big Apple.
I'd love to try one. Of course, I'm not buying that, but like I'd love to. I love VR. I'm a huge VR enthusiast. I love it. The Vision Pro is like the Rolls Royce of VR. I've not had the chance to try one. I'd love to try one.
They had them at the Apples, and it seemed like I could have just walked up and tried. I didn't, but it seems like I could have. I'm surprised you haven't gone to the Apple store just to see.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm never at an Apple store, so I'm not gonna.
See, ours is at the mall. So like occasionally we go to the mall, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll go to the Apple store, check it out.
We have a mall too. Yeah, but that's where ours is, but I haven't been to a mall in forever. Like, if I'm near a mall, like usually if I'm like dating somebody, they want to go to the mall, and that's when I would always go to an Apple store. Now I'm single, so that just doesn't happen normally. But typically, that's how I would end up like trying out some stuff at the Apple store. So at some point, I'll put that bad boy on and not pay for it because it's obscenely expensive.
What's the price if that cheaper one comes out? Is there a price point in mind? Understanding it's Apple that would make you go, okay, I will pick this up. Is there like a roof that they get to? They're like, all right.
That's tough to say because I haven't used like what they. Cause my thing. This is a bit of a tangent, but like with Apple stuff, they typically don't enter a market unless they feel like they've sort of figured it out. And so, like with the Vision Pro, it's fascinating to see them enter the VR space because like their whole thing was that you don't necessarily need any input methods, and so it's kind of it's like a similar iPhone moment in that like it was a big deal for them to say ditch buttons with handsets and just do a big screen. And the sort of way we interact with handsets completely changed with the iPhone. With VR, it's like, well, and again, I haven't tried it, but it feels like a similar moment of the pinch and the drag and Yeah, and I'd love to try it and see how I feel about it. I don't expect I would like love it to the point where I want to drop $3,500 on it, but if it could be like a really cool productivity device, who knows?
The
I just
thing that I found so interesting about it is people showing them walking around their house with it, and they left a window open, like in like the spare room, and they walk in, and like the web page is still there,
Mhm.
just from what like that sounds kind of cool. That it has like the spatial awareness to put applications and like web pages and stuff all around your house when you walk around, you just kind of see it at like the corner of your eye. That seems kind of neat.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many aspects I could talk about that headset, but this is not this is, this is not the Apple G3
Well, hold on,
podcast. So.
PlayStation's partnering with now.
Sure, but it's not a PlayStation product per se. Maybe it would be the PlayStation 8. Maybe that would be the jump. Maybe that would be the intermediate platform before it turns into a sphere that you crack open and it just gives you pure ecstasy. Maybe.
Maybe Sony moves Horizon Call of the Mountain to the Vision Pro.
Ooh, maybe.
Mm.
I don't expect that, but maybe. I mean, they're not going to print the game physically for me, so
Yeah.
you never know. We do have one final PSVR 2 update here, though. It's the PC update. So the app recently got updated to 2.5.0. It includes performance and stability improvements, improving messages and usability on some screens. But you'll also be notified if your controllers aren't working properly because of a poor Bluetooth connection. So just a way for people to troubleshoot fixing their controller. Not quite the update we need on PC just yet. We want those haptics and triggers turned on. We want that headset feedback turned on. So that has not happened just yet. We've also got an update on the portable PS5 rumor. Nothing crazy here, but we just have Digital Foundry chiming in that they're basically corroborating it, saying that they've heard about it as well. Because they're not like in the business of ever leaking things, but like they're hardware guys, so they'll hear this stuff normally. So now that it's like out there, now they're saying, yes, we've heard about it. Yep. Their quick take on this, I think, is very similar to kind of where we've been at on this thing, in that like the PS5 SoC probably is not going to get shrunk to the point where like every game would be compatible, but like we're talking about a situation of like mostly PS4 stuff. Patches would have to come in, sort of a handheld mode for certain games. Maybe that's how they'll also go into PlayStation 6. So nothing necessarily too new here, but it's always noteworthy to have another party chime in saying this thing's happening.
We'll see more about AMD's, I guess, position or roadmap with that Z2 Extreme that should be shown, I think, in January. Mm-hmm. But we'll get an idea then, because that Sony AMD partnering very closely, they'll at least give us an idea, since again the handheld we think is still 3 years off minimum. So we might be on like the Z3, Z4 Extreme even by then.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually, I guess, the one thing to mention. I think it was John Lemon. He said he was surprised that it was maybe like it's sounding like it's further out than he thought, which I don't know. Depends on what
next to the PS6, maybe.
Yeah, it depends on what he heard. But yeah, I would presume this thing is like pretty far out. So right next to PS6. All right, we've got some a take here from the PlayStation Studios Business Group CEO, Herman Hulst. He was recently speaking with the BBC, and he touched on the subject of AI in gaming. He said it does have the potential to revolutionize gaming, elaborating further with, and I quote here, I suspect there will be a dual demand in gaming, one for AI-driven innovative experiences and another for handcrafted, thoughtful content. Striking the right balance between leveraging AI and preserving the human touch will be crucial. That was a big headline not too long ago. Preserving the human touch. We did have the corporate strategy meeting not that long ago, and that was where the CFO and the president, both Yoshida and Hiroki Totoki, flat out saying that, like, we'll be using AI for things like quality assurance and asset generation. So, I mean, you've got more of the corporate side speaking to shareholders saying, absolutely, we're going to do it. But then you've got maybe more of a spiffied up PR statement saying that we have to preserve human touch.
Well, you would assume that's the human touch element would make your product just completely different from everyone else's. And that's kind of how it is with Sony, where you have a Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, etc. Like they make games specifically by creatives that are going to feel very unique. I think the concern with AI is that eventually, if AI is making all these games, they're going to just copy off of each other, and it'll be very similar. So I think what they're saying is correct in the sense that, hey guys, look, I know many shareholders are like, oh, AI could save us so much money, and the gamers will still buy the stuff. It's like, not necessarily, kind of still need the human touch. Let's relax on that. Now, can it help the creatives to get through things that are just tedious tasks that maybe it could mean they could work on 2 games at once or just speed up development? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like the tools they're using. If you can make those better so that they can be more creative and do more things, I think that's the strategy. That's the move, so that we can get these developments from 7 years to 3 years, maybe. You know, that'd be great. I know everyone wants it now. It's like, hey, look, you came up with this idea, let's get it out next year. But there is kind of that realistic, take as well. It's like, well, even if we had AI working at full force and it was super creative, it would still probably take a little bit of time. So you go through so many iterations, you would focus group things. It takes time to figure all that out. So AI to assist humans to create these games is, I think, the best way to go. That's it. Like, I think what Elon mentioned, he was going to have an entire studio run by AI specifically to make games. And that'll be an interesting thing to see what happens, but I'm not looking for the entire industry to do that. I don't think that would be good.
No. My concern is just that they will safely navigate it in such a manner where it's more what you're talking about. I think it's completely naive to think like AI has no place. It's silly. Obviously it does. It's going to happen. Even if we want to boil it down to the most pessimistic take of they're multi-billion-dollar companies, of course they're going to use it. There's going to be job loss. It's like going to happen. The concern is just how do they navigate it? Is it more in the interest of retaining the same workforce but making bigger and better experiences, or doing it in a more timely manner and leveraging that in between multiple projects, and not having this like unsustainable business where we've got games that take 8 years? And there's obviously great ways it could go. I just have very little confidence a company like even Sony will navigate it in a very safe manner, but I would love to be wrong.
Yeah, as Medallion mentions, the temptation not to abuse it is impossible when you see maybe you do save X millions of dollars using it for this one thing. You're like, oh, could that apply to everything else? Could we do that? That starts to get a little, and then again, the concern is it starts to become very like, a lot of the stuff becomes very sterile and very samey and almost machine-like, actually. That human element, that creativity, that artistic vision is very important for the games, especially at the top level and directing around. But if you can use AI to make things better, like, so when you open up that Excel spreadsheet and it's like, hey, you remember how you had this setting from your last document? Do you want it all like that again? And you're like, yes, boom, there it is. So you have all your categories and stuff lined up like that. It makes sense to save you time rather than have to type it all out again. Might save you 30 minutes, which adds up. But if it's like, hey, do you want us to just go ahead and write the entire synopsis that we'll figure it out for you? It's like, well, no, hold on a minute. So
like a lot of it is like, here's the thing. The business already has a lot of generative tools. Like that stuff is very prolific as far as like saving time. But yeah, it's as a lot of the chat is pointing out, machine learning off of like handcrafted, let's say,
yeah, how's that work? What's the laws with that?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just there's so many angles to where this can go south so fast, and that's my concern. It's hard to have confidence that this is gonna in 10 years like look good, especially in a business where we've already had, what is it, 20, 30,000 something layoffs. It's insane. It's and nuts. And AI is not even really like fully, I don't want to say accepted, because there's always going to be a lot of pushback. I mean, even like, well, there's that Call of Duty stuff going on, right? And that's blowing up. You see that? There's like AI. There's like AI art being used for zombies or something. I didn't look into it too much.
They used they used generative AI for like a skin, I believe, last year, and it wouldn't shock me if right now it's going on with other stuff too, because it worked. No one noticed. People didn't know until they said something.
Yeah.
So they bought the skin, they used it. They probably told their friends they liked it, and Activision did that on purpose to just see how it would go, collect data, and they realized, oh, people didn't even realize that. Okay, all right, let's see how it works with zombies, maybe. So that's the thing. I think the thing that people may not realize right now is that many studios are using AI in different ways, and they're not telling us. And we'll find out about some of these next year, 2 years from now. There might be games that come out like this year coming up that we buy and we play and we go through. It's pretty good. And then we find out next year at GDC or something. Oh yeah, we used AI for all these different bits and pieces of the game. You're like, what?
And who's gonna be brave enough to hold a GDC panel and explain their use of AI?
I mean, we found out. What did Square used AI for something in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, didn't they?
Well, I thought you were gonna say Foam Stars. There's like
Foam Stars was one, right?
They said like, there's like 0.1% or something in there.
That was one too. Yeah, that's the thing. We'll find out later when they're comfortable telling us, when they sold enough copies. But even at GDC, if you explain it to people and you continue to like kind of spread the message of AI, it'll become less and less weird because more people are using it. You know, you won't be the outcast then using AI. You'll be the normal person then.
Yep. I hate to say it, but if it happens enough times, then you're gonna have this kind of be the new normal.
Yeah, but then what becomes uncommon then after that? It's like just using AI to voice people who they can't get under contract. Is that going to be a thing?
Well, then we're gonna have some suits filed if that's the case.
But it's not it's the machine doing it. It's the AI. The AI took the initiative. Now we're talking about AI with intuition, and
that's the greater conversation to be had. There's still not a whole lot of legal precedent that's been set. So it's going to get ugly. I mean, John, our jobs are probably up for jeopardy here. There's AI YouTube channels.
No, the AI would have said click R3 number 13 immediately. They would have not messed that up.
Hey, listen, you got to understand the few times that I've used ChatGPT just to quickly check something, and I'm like, you're actually wrong about that. And it goes, oh, thanks. I'm like, shit, I just gave it the right answer.
It's learning. You're teaching it, Ryan. Stop.
I asked it something. So I'm like, is this game 60 FPS? It was like a PS2 game. And it's like, no. And I was confident. I'm like, I think you're wrong. And it's like, oh, you're right, actually. I'm like, ah, shit.
You should be like, wow, you're so right. You should go tell all your AI friends about that. You're so smart.
My PlayStation knowledge is teaching ChatGPT. I got to not do that.
Maybe the AI was testing you, Ryan, at how cooperative you'll be with the AI overlords in the future.
Listen, just put a roof over my head. I'll be all right. Oh boy, this will be a fun one, John, because the chat was already talking about it earlier. PS3 emulation running on a Raspberry Pi.
Oh yeah, I set this up. I'll let them know.
So the team behind RPCS3 has recently made the announcement that their PS3 emulator is now running on ARM64 hardware and also native support on Apple Silicon. And it's able to run on a Raspberry Pi 5. Now, the big caveat, obviously, is that the games are running at a resolution of 273p, but they did do a demo showing off games like Folklore, God of War Collection, Catherine, all running on the Pi. Very impressive stuff. But any advancement this team makes is just a very awkward thing when the actual organization has not done anything.
Yeah, it's not helping Sony's case right now. So I have the Raspberry Pi 5 here. This was a funny case I had for it. His little tower, look at that thing. I'm gonna put the PS3 games on it. I'm gonna load it up and try it.
Give it a shot, huh?
Yeah. I also got the look at this thing. I found this cool little mini. They make so many Raspberry Pi cases. It's so funny. Look at this. It's like a little mini PC tower. Look at that thing.
Well, now somebody has to make a mini PS3.
Look at that guy. Yeah. I thought about that, putting like the PlayStation logo on it or something and make a little PS3 case. So I'm gonna put this guy in here, and I will load PS3 games on. I might do it maybe for this weekend. We'll see. but I already have. So I have the Blu-ray disc drive for I have a PC downstairs where I have the correct Blu-ray disc drive installed, so I can back up all my Blu-ray PlayStation 3 games. And that's how I get a lot of my. I don't even like people go online obviously to download this stuff. I actually back mine up. Like I have the ability to do that, and it takes like 10 to 15 minutes per disc to do. But I actually back it up, dump it to my system, and I can play it through our PCS3 or whatever, and it works well. So in this case, I'm going to do that. I have it on an external drive, and I will plug it in, and we will see what this thing can load. But I think it is no one's going to play it that way, but it is that situation of like, we can do it. The Raspberry Pi 5 has no business running PS3 games. I don't care what resolution it's out. There's no way it should be doing that, but like it is. So it's kind of like running Doom on like the pregnancy test. It's like there's no point. No one's going to play it, but look at this. We did it.
Yeah. It's very impressive. It's cool. I was watching the footage and I'm like, I mean, obviously it looks like dog water, but it's like, man, they actually got it going. That's crazy. I'll make the argument. Some games might actually look pretty cool at 273p. Like Folklore look
okay.
cool.
I'll see. Got any in mind? I might have them. Maybe load them up.
I mean, I'm not gonna actually do it, but you know, I was looking at it. I'm like, some of these games actually might look pretty cool with this like sort of retro low res filter.
Sit far enough away.
Sit far enough away. It'll get sharper. Oh, put it in a Game Boy Micro form factor. Just the sheer pixel density is going to make it look sharp.
Put it on a CRT.
No, put it on a micro pixel density.
Okay. The Game Boy Micro screen.
Folklore on a Game Boy Micro screen.
Can you imagine the UI of any PlayStation 3 game on like a little 2-inch screen?
It'd be like impossible to navigate. You'd have to just know where you're going. Yeah. Oh boy. I do want to at least make the obligatory. I'm tripping over my words like crazy tonight. I want to make the obligatory comment of, well, there's obviously a difference between hobbyists doing it and a company that has to monetize it. So that's just how these things go. I mean, they're not going to ship a emulator that is low resolution. They're not going to ship an emulator with unstable frame rates. They're not going to ship an emulator where they're not even entirely sure what games they can and cannot sell to you anymore. There's many business hurdles that keep this from happening, even beyond just the simple idea that like PS4 hardware wise, probably still very CPU bound, even PS5 to a degree, if we're talking about certain first party titles. Maybe PlayStation 6.
I think it's PS4 that's doing the hang up, because did you see the video? Somebody actually just put this out a couple days ago where they got a cut down PS5 board that's sold now, which is so funny, for mining crypto. They got this board and they loaded up PS3 games on it through Linux, and it plays them fine with 2 CPU cores disabled even.
Now, see, but you say fine, but like it wouldn't be fine. Like a lot of those games are not up to the QA standards of how they'd want the games to be shipped. They just go through a QA process where like, I don't want to undermine like the work that hobbyists do, but like, it's not how the games would get shipped officially. It's just not.
They're playing like 1440p, 40 to 60 frames, somewhere in there.
Well, so the selective candidates that have that performance, but some of them are not that. Some of them look ugly. Some of them run like absolute ass and dog water. PS3 is still a nightmare. The console is still highly illustrative of how some games are wildly different under emulation.
Well, I assume Sony would do a case by case, like a title by title, kind of like with the PS2 games now, where we get a couple here and there. I assume it'd be similar, where they put them through. They get the emulator set up specifically for each one if they have to, and then they release it.
Well, that's the thing about PS2 stuff, though, is like I'm sure the emulator for PS2, like you could throw most PS2 games at most PS2 games are probably fine, but the hurdle is what can they sell to you at that point. Mm-hmm. But now every vertical is stacked against PS3, which is what can they sell, and also we have to like probably QA each individual yeah. You could probably build like one emulation layer, right? And then, because this is what Microsoft did. They built an initial layer, threw one game at it, completely broken. Had to go into the finer details of that game to clean it up. And then they had to do that on a game-by-game basis from there on out. So it's, but like PS1 stuff is you could make an emulator and throw 99% of the library at it. It's probably going to run just fine. Same with PSP and 2. So 3 is just still like an absolute pain in the ass.
Well, maybe PS6 will solve it.
That's 6 is where I'll start beating the drum. It's like, let's get this going, guys.
Yeah. I mean, the server blades only got so many cycles left in them.
6 is where I'll start. I'll grab my pitchfork once we're at 6. 5.
Imagine there's just the whole PS3 library hinges on these server blades that are running 24/7 with cell processors from 2006 in them or something like that, or 2009.
The weird thing too, though, is like if you scan the PS3 library, a lot of stuff from third parties already got native remasters. So like a lot of it's already like solved. There's just like a handful of PS3 exclusives. And so it's like at a certain point, like you could just finance those as like a proper port. And it might come out cheaper.
Yeah.
Then there's also just like a handful of third party stuff that, like, let's say, yeah, it's like in limbo and it might never come back and we'll just have to live with that reality. But like, there's got to be like bean counters that have already sort of like sussed out the PS3 library. And it's like, would it make sense to like emulate the console and that at that point we just finance like the 20 or so exclusive titles that are stuck here? I don't know.
It seems like they'd be able to do pretty well just selling them anyway, even at $15-$20 per PS3 game. That shouldn't be an issue, I feel like.
And the other hard aspect of it is like, I love classic games. Sure you do. I'm sure this chat does. The shit has to make money. Like backwards compatibility is still like not used to the degree that people think it does. It's not
Right.
the value. It's not the value add people think it is.
Gotta get these people off Fortnite.
You got to get these people playing some goddamn PlayStation 3.
PS3 game. Get MotorStorm out there. It's all good. Just get them going with that. Let's get the kids started.
In somewhat related news, we do have the PlayStation preservation team. I just can't speak tonight. The senior build engineer and IP preservation at SIE, Garrett Fredley, announced that their team has now archived 500 terabytes of PlayStation history. Now, for those uninformed, this preservation team has been around for about 2 years. They're not in the business of they don't make games or anything. They don't emulate or anything like that. What the work they do behind the scenes, very important work. They're there to archive everything that's being made today, what's been made in the past, like what's just available in the library, basically. So preserving tools, builds of games, design documents, just various aspects of what goes into making a game. And a part of their job too is also building the archive and fleshing it out so that when a team has to pull from the archive, it's a very easy thing to find that thing and then to retrieve it as well. And also worrying about long-term storage since there's degradation at play for like where these things are stored. So it's very important work because I know firsthand a lot of not firsthand, but I know from different accounts that many studios like either just flat out have not been doing this up until like a few years ago.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of them that haven't been doing this.
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, dare I say most, but like within recent years, now it's become a more common thing where like some like publishers are now like funding these practices because that's where we have horror stories where some games just like lose source code. And it's like, wait, so we can't do that game because like we just don't have it.
That's why we don't have Panzer Dragoon Saga.
Yeah. And so this is very important work. 500 terabytes of PlayStation history is in the books, which 500 maybe doesn't seem like a lot, but I feel like
500 terabytes. I mean, think about
PS4 and under.
Games.
Yeah, PS4 and under is probably pretty small.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like PS1, PS2, PS3 got bigger, obviously, but like that PS1 and PS2 generation, nothing like how it is now.
I'd have to imagine they'll double this number like very quickly now.
Just in the PS5 generation alone, yeah, that'll do it. But it is important though. Like we even just saw it with Team Asobi and Astrobot. Like how much stuff did they use from PlayStation history just in that one game? Probably having to go back and do that. Even things like, as you mentioned, media and promotional material, just making that 2.5-minute trailer that they did for the PlayStation, like the 30th anniversary. trailer, which was awesome. They had to go back and get footage, clips, and stuff. Some from promotional, some from in-game even. So it's all important stuff. Got to respect that history. Got to have it available.
That's right. That's right. I do not want to be in a position 5-10 years from now where they can't do something with the stuff that they're making today. So good stuff. And actually, that's about all we got. I mean, we can touch on the Game Awards, just in that we're hearing from a lot of people that the show is going to be pretty big. And the implication is that maybe because Sony does show up to most Jeff Keighley events, they do tend to skip Gamescom sometimes, but typically like Game Awards, they'll be there for something.
Man, people hyping this thing up right now, Ryan. I see it online. You know, usually it's like people start passing around some rumors and stuff, and some come in and go, well, hold on, guys, this was raining a little. It's the opposite. They're like, yo, the hype train is moving. It's dude, some of the games that are getting thrown around right now and no one's saying, hold on, guys, that might be a little much. It's just not happening, which is, seems a little weird that because one game in particular is being brought up and I'm like, there's no way, but no one's saying, no, guys, that's not what I meant. Okay. Like Bloodborne came up, right? Obviously people are like, oh yeah, Bloodborne. Jason Schreier was like, no, that's not what I meant.
Yep.
Half-Life 3 came up today. And no one's like, no, guys, come on. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, that might actually be there. It's like, it feels kind of weird right now for the Game Awards in the sense that it feels overhyped, but nobody is like saying that.
I think the most telling thing is like, you didn't get the obligatory, like Jeff Keighley coming out and saying like,
yeah,
here's what it's going to be, guys. Like, no, he's not saying shit, which the silence from him.
You think he thinks he's got one here?
This man probably is happy as can be going into the
got it. Yeah. He's got one. He's got the show.
The annoying thing is that this thing's probably going to be 3 goddamn hours long, and you know the one of them's probably near the end. So,
oh yeah, one will be like the last 30 minutes of the show is where they'll show a big one or something. But I don't know. Some of the rumors right now are going off. It apparently PlayStation. It seems like they'll be there in a pretty meaningful way. The discussion is that it maybe Days Gone remastered. That seems like an easy, like, oh, here you go, Jeff. But then they're like, no, maybe Naughty Dog's new IP is here.
Possible. The thing is, like, the company absolutely can say things. It's just a matter of, like, pick your poison. What could it be? And I don't know. I felt for months now that, like, they could probably say one more thing before the year closes out. This would probably be the time where they're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so, too. I mean, we heard people were mentioning that Wolverine would get a showing before the end of the year. This seems like an easy place to do that if they want to. I mean, it's very Western audience oriented, right? The show is Wolverine, very popular and like around the world, sure, but just a very popular IP. You could definitely do it there. And we just had Deadpool Wolverine, which did incredibly well at the box office. A lot of interest on that. So Wolverine kind of riding like a high right now. Yeah, I think that would do well too. So I think Sony's there in a pretty strong way.
You know, if anything, like it would be if they are one of the one of two big announcements per se, they might, yeah, like a handful of smaller stuff too. Like they've had multiple things in one show. It's probably like that. Yeah, if the Days Gone remaster thing's going to pop, it'll probably be like in the middle of the show or something. Maybe another thing. Yeah. Maybe announce the accessories or something. You know, that's so.
You think Silk Song is there?
You know how many people would love that?
I have some super chats here too, Ryan. We can go over.
You do, yes.
Flying by. Wanted to make a segment for that. Do you still have a PSX going to give it to you as well?
Of course.
Okay, cool. We'll get to that as well in a second. I will go through some of the super chats here to recognize people who donated. Let's see. We have Zoob who says Haven, Firewalk, Bungie, and Bend have only been a waste of cash. Did Ubisoft ever tell Sony the definition of insanity? Shut them down.
Shut down Bend? No, man. We can't shut down Bend. We can't shut down Bend. No.
Well, Firewalk's gone, so there you go.
Shutting down Bungie also doesn't make sense either.
They're rolling with Destiny still. I mean, we got to see what they're going to do with Marathon as well. Just to see. It hasn't grabbed me yet, but we also haven't seen anything for it really. They've just kind of talked about it. And Haven, I'm the tone of their game has me concerned, but also I realize there's not a lot of heist games, so they might just by default show up and it at least do. Look, it can't do worse than Concord. All right, I can't see how that's actually possible. All right. Oh, you know what? I will mention, Ryan. I mentioned the secret levels thing that I didn't realize though that the PlayStation episode is until next week.
Yeah. What the?
Yeah. I did watch some of them though. Dude, Sifu was good.
Did you watch is the Mega Man one out?
No, it's next week as well.
Oh, you got to be just see.
I'm ready. I was hoping it would be. Actually, to be honest, the episodes that they had, I was like, I don't really. There weren't as many as I'd be in. Like, I just don't. The Warhammer 40K universe, that's fine. New World universe, I'm like, okay, that's not really for me. But they did have Armored Core, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one. Had Keanu Reeves in it.
Oh, well, thanks for ruining it for me.
We see him right away, but yeah, he's in it, and that one was good, dude. The Pac-Man one was so weird.
Should I watch it?
Yeah, watch Pac-Man was very weird. It was you're gonna turn it on and be like, where's Pac-Man start? Where does he come in?
Yeah, because I'm with you. Like IP wise, there's maybe only like 4 or 5 that I'd really like sit down and watch. I got a buddy who loves Warhammer, so I'll tell him to watch that one. But
apparently the Warhammer one's really good. It's just
that's what I heard.
So, but Armored Core is good. I recommend Armored Core.
Okay.
You're gonna. I think it comes out next on the 17th. Hold on. Oh, that's when we'll be recording. You know what? I will watch the PlayStation episode that day. It's like probably 15 minutes long, if that.
Oh wow, that's short.
Oh, did you see all the episodes, dude? The longest episodes are 15 minutes. Some are 10 minutes long.
Oh, no shit. I didn't even load it up. I thought they were like at least 20 minutes.
No, they're quick.
Good Lord. All right.
Yeah.
It's like an Aqua Teen Hunger Force episode.
Kind of, yeah. You'll get through it pretty fast. Like Sifu, the credits were like 3 minutes. The whole thing was maybe 7 minutes long.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So it's quick watches. Chris VW says, it is great to be here. And I was worried about Game and Talk. I'm glad that will be back. It will. They'll have some stories for you because they're actually going to be at the Game Awards. So I don't know, maybe they'll pan the audience and you'll see them or something. And they're going to be at some of the parties, I'm sure, afterwards too. So that'll be interesting to hear about their adventures. They say this is way off topic, but will there be an Xbox soon? Okay.
That's all you, John.
Let's see, Chris VW. Will there be an Xbox soon? Like an Xbox.
You really going to do this to Chris? I think you know what he's asking.
Direct Xbox. Yes, Nate and I are recording a Direct Xbox on Friday.
Chris, I'm sorry.
We'll be here, Chris, Friday. Nate is back to full health. He's ready to roll. So we'll be back Friday night. I'm gonna get Nate out here. Okay, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. We actually have a lot to talk about because Indiana Jones came out. That's also coming to PS5, by the way. So there is some kind of relation here for the show. And the game is really good. So PlayStation owners are going to get a good game in 6 months or so. And it'll look really cool. I'm sure the PS5 Pro, hopefully. But I like it quite a bit. Ryan, this is a Ryan question. Dwayne says, what 2 starters should I pick for my Y replay? Pokemon Y.
2 starters? That means you're just leaving 1 behind, huh? Well, my choice was always Fennekin. That's for sure in there. I kind of gravitated more towards Chespin, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
So
those are the 2.
Those 2. Maybe it's just me being against the grain of like what was the obvious pick for Ash.
Dragon Ball 223, which you mentioned this, the wrap up, they removed Concord, but I wanted to recognize Dragon Ball here as well. Oh, Grizzly Bear King says, hey, Ryan, thoughts on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Collection not having Duelist of Roses, Falsebound Kingdom, or Forbidden Memories? Also, humor me thoughts on the new ban list / new format. When is your YCS debut?
Oh, what a great question. Thank you for asking that. I imagine they're probably going to just bundle those in another game because it's Konami and they like money. So all the 3D games will probably be in a different one. Who knows if they'll announce that soon enough to where they'll bundle in like a QCR or something, since this upcoming collection is going to have 2 arts for Harpy's Feather Duster. Thoughts on the new ban list and new format? It's Ryziel and Malice, right? That's the big deal. I didn't actually think they were going to be that good, but sure enough, Ryziel took home a YCS. It was like Ryziel Fiendsmith, a Fiendsmith package from Triff there. That was pretty dope to see. And in YCS debut, not going to happen because I play bullshit jank like Relinquished and Tunes and Destiny board, and I like to mix super old archetypes and give them some of the newest stuff available. Probably the most modern thing I play is Nouvelles, which Nouvelles can be pretty fun. They're pretty combo heavy, but it's also ritual, so it's Brick City. So it'll probably never happen. But thank you for that question and letting me geek out for a little bit.
Are you picking You're picking the collection up?
Big time, yeah.
Okay.
It's got a QCR. Got to get the collection.
Oh. I saw I saw the list of games come out, and people are still pretty excited for it just because it's the whole collection of old school Yu-Gi-Oh games. So this is from Victor Perez, who says, "Yeah, we need more Click R3 shows." Thanks, guys. Hey, shout out to Victor.
Victor, nice having you here.
I think we will make our last episode of the year, which will be next week. Well, maybe we'll make that live with us two and Nano here. That could be fun. Varang says my PlayStation wrap up told me to touch grass. Well,
my boy Varang said, "Nah, get out of here, touch grass. Go mingle outside of a hotel."
Victor Perez says, "Hey John, what about the Stellar Blade podcast episode with MVG?" Yeah, I bet you we could still do that. I thought about having a conversation with MVG about the games this year, because him and I actually played a lot of the same games that a lot of people on the cast and stuff didn't play. And I wanted to get MVG back on back on a podcast as well, like that, just one-on-one. So we talked about like Final Fantasy Rebirth, and that was fun to do that. So just MVG and I randomly will play, we'll play certain like Ubisoft games or Square games or what, it's the Stellar Blade and stuff. And it not played as much by like Nate, Sean, Ryan, Celia, whoever. So MVG and I just play like some kind of mainstream stuff, actually, just random weird stuff sometimes. But I'll see. Maybe I'll get him on a show, Victor, and we'll just reflect on 2024 games, and Stellar Blade will be one of them. Ryan, you had the PlayStation or PSX going to give it to you?
Sure do, John.
Oh, and then Omni Fire didn't put a comment in there. Omni Fire, I will keep an eye on the chat if you want to throw a comment in.
Thank you, Omni Fire.
Go ahead, Ryan.
PSX, go and give it to you. This is the segment of the show where we look back on PlayStation history, get a little bit nostalgic, maybe reflect on a time within PlayStation history. Now, obviously, it is the 30th anniversary, but it's also like the direct 20th anniversary for the PlayStation portable PlayStation Portable, PSP. Thought we'd look back on some PSP stuff going on here. What was so fascinating to me about sort of the midpoint of PSP is where Sony had to start dealing with, 2008, 2009, 2010, smartphones, smartphone games, how that's cutting into the portable business. So with Sony, what they did at the time was a few different programs, one of them being PSP Minis or PlayStation Minis, which were basically their way of like courting mobile game developers to ship their games on PlayStation Network that were playable on a PSP, or also you could launch them on a PS3 and they looked really weird and blown up because the resolution was super small, but you could play PS Minis. Or they also had that new ad campaign with Marcus PSP, Step Your Game Up, which was also a collaboration with
that was good.
Kevin Butler. And it was a whole thing. It was a direct targeted ad saying, I can't believe these whack kids are playing smartphone games. Like, you got to get yourself a PSP, son. And I thought it was a really interesting time, right? Because the PSP did come out just early enough to where like it was a very good like all-in-one portable device. Like it had like a small window where like it truly was a really great multimedia device. So like 2004 and 5, like I would use it like that a lot. Like I had music on there. I had photos. Yeah. Like it was a truly portable, like multimedia player for me. I had a few UMD movies as well. They're still back there, John.
I never got into watching UMDs on it, but I do remember the push where Sony was basically like, hey, this will do everything for you if you want it to. Mm-hmm. I still just played games on it though. Like I think there was a comic reader on there too, wasn't there?
Yeah. The comic reader, I think, came out in like 2008 or 9, if I'm not mistaken. So that was already kind of pushing like where smartphones were creeping in. But if you think about like '04 and '05, right? The only comparable would have been like iPod video. If you really think about it, like for a portable multimedia-esque device, it was the iPod video, which that was like the slightly fatter one because the Nano wouldn't let you play videos. So like you had the slightly fatter one, and the screen was like I think it must have been like what 1.5 inches, 2 inches, or no,
Yeah.
maybe 2 inches. But you
Like this
could
little
like
rectangle thing, wasn't it?
big rectangle, yeah. And then the
Yeah.
PSP comes in, and it's like a for its time big enough screen to where like you could comfortably like watch something on it. Music playback was great because you had Memory Stick Pro Duo and you could store a decent amount of things on there. Storage came at a premium, obviously, but like there were a few years where they really did kind of like live the PSP dream up until smartphones came out. Then they had to really do this like pivotal U-turn, not only grappling with like piracy, which was a completely separate thing, but it was a matter of like not only is piracy cutting into the game sales, but smartphones are really starting to eat away at this player base because you could
Yeah.
like start playing like the I don't know those like swipe games where you could cut the rope and the jumping games and
Doodle jump, man.
yeah, doodle jump, endless runners and things. And so it was. I always remember those like Marcus ads where he like straight up like looked at you and insulted the customer. Like, I can't believe you're playing games on your phone.
That was like around role models and everything, right?
Yeah,
That was all big then,
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
That was a fun time for Sony because the marketing campaigns, I don't know, it it's not really, we don't have that now obviously with them. We don't have like a Kevin Butler and a Marcus, but that just it felt like they were kind of having fun with those marketing campaigns, whereas now it seems like they're trying to be more, I'd say like buttoned up, but they're trying to be a little more like business wise for marketing, more upscale, I guess. It was just fun to have where like the wife is like or no, the husband's like she thinks we're watching a movie, that it's like Uncharted 2. Like
I love that ad, dude.
he's like, I don't see a problem here.
It's so stupid. He's like, oh, it's our new movie downloading machine, and she's like, that's a PlayStation 3. He's like, no, 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 look,
Yeah,
the Dark
those
Knight.
ads were good. It's like I don't
Yeah.
see the problem here.
That was like that was definitely those like mid 2000s, like the 2010s. Like that was like how you advertised back then. Like you did like slapstick humor or like silly jokes like that.
Yeah.
It's not really
Like the
common nowadays.
2.99. And just like, oh, you're talking about. And they're like doing all the marketing behind it for 2.99. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a lot
Yeah,
of that
there's
going
a
on.
lot of good people. Just look that up if you don't remember any of that, or you weren't technically even like old enough to be in gaming then. Go look up the ads back then with Kevin Butler. There are entire YouTube videos where they just string them one after the other for like an hour or something. You just watch all of them. It's
There's a
great.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was because some were Kevin Butler, and then like the movie downloading one you just said, like that was just the part of the it only does everything ad campaign. There's a handful of those that aren't even like Kevin Butler's not even in there, but they're still silly.
Yeah. So the basic idea is people that chat, if you don't remember, someone would write into PlayStation, be like, "Dear PlayStation," and they'd have some weird problem that doesn't actually sound like a problem, or it was really funny. So, and then if Kevin Butler, who's like, I don't know, what is he? Their I don't even know what he was. They're just writing to the executive, and he's like writing back.
He'd be the VP of, and it would be always like a ridiculous job title.
Yeah, it was good. It was fun. I don't know. Those are the kind of commercials I wouldn't mind seeing them play around with again, but uh, I'm not saying it's like a place or anything. It's just they know what they are, and they're kind of controlling the market right now for the high end gaming machine. So that may have been a more, I don't say desperate time, but them trying to turn around the PS3, and that's just the marketing campaign clearly played into that.
Yeah, it was a different time. That's all I got for you, John.
Fun time.
Yep.
Well, I think I had. Let me see. RDX says, I worry about tariffs on game consoles.
That's a distinct possibility. My understanding of that is that obviously companies can step in and just like, sort of lobby and ask for exceptions. So it's really hard to even say right now.
Oh, I'm sure bribes will happen. Don't worry.
Yeah.
The politics behind the scenes is, I'm sure there's all kinds of things that happen. I don't know if game consoles will be targeted as much as people believe they will be. And there are many factories around the world that aren't in China that I think things can be figured out, is what I'll tell you. But I will also tell you this. I think if you're concerned about like the PlayStation 6, which is like the thing that people would look towards now in terms of launching a new system that could potentially be affected by tariffs for like a brand new release. I still think the path now is not necessarily jamming more hardware in these boxes. It's figuring out things like PSSR and doing a more nuanced approach with it. So even then, my concern is that they end up at a $600 price because they have to, but can they navigate it there and still keep it within reason for their 8K aspirations, even with that PSSR? PSSR basically has to evolve quite a bit, I feel like, over the next 3 or 4 years to be ready for prime time for the PS6.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, if you bought a PS5 Pro, you're kind of part of the R&D sort of kind of. I mean, yeah, we're early adopters for technology right now for Sony. So Claw says, Ryan, multi-platform player here. Thank you for keeping the fanboys out of your videos.
Oh, I appreciate it. I try very hard to make sure we've got a stable position and we just talk about games first and platform second.
His secret is he stays off Twitter.
It does you a world of good in today's environment. I'll tell you that much. It's like actual brain rot.
It kind of is. Just a lot of social media stuff like that is, yes. But I think that's everything for Click R3 number 13, first live episode. People seem to like it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun seeing some of these familiar names in the chat. I know who you are. I know where you live.
It was cool seeing people come by. And if you guys like the live episode, you don't mind if it's later at night, because that kind of lines up better for both of us. We can still do them. And I will tell you this, for processing, uploading and stuff, it is a bit easier because it's just going to be live now. So it's immediately ready. I just have to download the audio and make sure it's up on Spotify, Apple Music, and that kind of thing, which is easy enough. But if you guys like it, we can start doing this more and just opt for the live show and going through it and seeing some of the chat and stuff as we roll. So we usually record Tuesdays. I don't know how people feel about Tuesday nights.
We do tend to move it around if we have to. Sometimes Tuesday, sometimes, like, I don't know, we've done Sunday before, I think, and then also Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. We move it around. Yeah.
We try for Tuesday. Sometimes it's Wednesday, but I don't know. Let us know what you guys think. So, and next week we will be back doing a live show talking about the Game Awards and maybe just holidays episode kind of stuff. Maybe look back at some of the old holidays for Sony. We can talk about just the year of 2024 in general, and it'll probably like an hour-long episode or so, and we'll sign off then for 2024 and return in 2025 then. Okay, so we're going to shoot for the 17th, Tuesday, 9:00. We'll shoot for that, okay? And it should be a lot of fun. We'll have Nana with us, and we'll hang out and talk some PlayStation. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Click R3, number 13. That's Ryan. Check him out. I got the link to his channel down below in the description. And we'll see you guys next time.